Now we are going to be joined by DWC member Chellie Pingree, representing Maine's 1st Congressional District. It is absolutely beautiful there. And DWC Progressive Caucus liaison Jill Takuda, representing Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District. Islands on different parts, one in Atlantic, one in the Pacific, both beautiful, both amazing. These two women are amazing advocates for women's health, for culture, for art, for our environment. And here is the next question. They're writing out the questions for me. Is there nothing we as constituents can do to stop this lunatic behavior? Which one of you wants to start on that one?
I will jump right in. It is truly lunatic behavior. And I think everybody who we see every day and people over the country, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, are very upset about what's going on in Washington, the chaos, the behavior of the president, everything else. But certainly this shutdown will be very unsettling for people. And the number one thing they can do is call their member of Congress, say, go along with the Democratic plan. We want to make sure that we restore the Affordable Care Act, the tax credits. We want to see you restore the cuts that have been made to Medicaid, which are going to be so dangerous for our hospitals. And we want to make sure you don't break your promise. If you do this, you got to go ahead with it. One quick thing I wanted to throw in there, and Jill and I think, are both on the Agriculture Committee, and I represent a lot of farmers, and I'm one myself. And you mentioned something from a rancher before. 27% of farmers in this country buy their health care through the exchange, and many of them will be the ones who are impacted. So when we think about groups of people, I also represent a lot of fishermen. They're independently employed. They will be impacted too.
And Jill, and I think that these ranchers and farmers, they are in everybody's districts, right? Absolutely. We are putting up how you can go find out what's happening in your district. And so what we all need to do is the power lies with the people, right? Reach out, because when we get a critical mass of people just saying no, they get pushed back and they are on their heels. They don't want to talk about healthcare because we keep talking about healthcare and because the American people are talking about healthcare. What do you say of what you think people can do, Representative Takuda?
Absolutely. And first of all, I think Republicans know we're on the right side of history. We're on the right side of this argument when it comes to drawing the line and saying it's about protecting people's lives. And right now they're playing politics with people's lives. And I would say this to constituents, to concerned advocates, to anyone out there: don't let them normalize this insanity. We cannot let this become acceptable behavior, acceptable excuses, an acceptable approach to how they want to run government. This is not for the people or by the people in any way. And so to the extent that they can share their stories of impact. I spent the whole week last week jumping island to island, the remote and most rural places in this country. And from Democrats and even those I know might have voted for Trump, I heard how these cuts to healthcare, these cuts to SNAP were going to hurt their ability to make ends meet, literally put food on their table. I heard Kupuna, our seniors, talking about how they were going to have to decide, can I pay a little bit more for those premiums or do I not pay for medication? And even worried about how the cost of prescription drugs are going to go up, having to decide, do I pay for medicine or do I cut it in half so that I can maybe eat tonight? These are the impossible decisions Republicans are forcing Americans in every single district to make. Hawaii has good healthcare coverage, and yet these cuts, whether it's the Medicaid cuts, whether it's the Affordable Care Act premium hikes and increases we are going to see by this, you're literally going to have over 42,000 people in Hawaii alone that will be impacted, more in my district, on every single island. And so I would encourage you, share your stories of impact, talk about what this is going to do to you. And like Chellie said, call your Congress member and tell them that this is deeply personal. Do the right thing.
So I got this from another DWC member. Representative Ross says we need to live the First Amendment. I call it living the First Amendment. Take out your Constitution. What does it say? freedom of religion. So say a little prayer in the morning, whoever you want to pray to, whether it's nature or your God and your faith, you know, freedom of the press. And we all are a little bit of the press now, right? We have social media platforms. Make sure you write those letters to the editor, you share news and your views on your social media platform. Freedom of assembly, show up in the streets peacefully and joyfully, as Representative Maxine Dexter said they did in Portland, joyfully and peacefully opposing the idea that they're going to send military troops. So live that First Amendment, live that Constitution. It's yours, it's your birthright. It's how we make the American promise. And Chellie, I've been saying Maine, we're getting a lot of questions from Maine. And so Emily, who you probably know, because I think you know everybody in Maine, wants to know, how in the world can we ensure a free and fair election in 2026 and 2028?
Well, thank you to all those Mainers. As you know, Teresa, it's a beautiful state and I'm lucky to represent it. And we have a lot of wonderful Emilys. So whichever Emily this is, thank you for writing in. And you're right. I think we're all deeply concerned about everything the Republicans are doing. They know they will lose the midterm election and they are trying to re-gerrymander in states. They're trying to take away voting rights. They are trying to make voting as difficult as possible so that they can basically cheat on the next election and win in that way. We've seen how Donald Trump does that. In Maine, we have a very important referendum coming up in November. So Emily, thanking you for asking that question, and all Mainers need to get out and vote no on question 1. That would really hamper our ability to use absentee ballots. It would interfere with a wonderful turnout. Maine and Minnesota battle every year. We're usually number 1 or number 2 of the states that get the highest voter turnout. That's deeply concerning for Republicans. They'd like to see people not be able to vote, but we have no fault absentee. We have a lot of systems that make it easier for people to vote. You can register on election day. There's a variety of things, and this would turn back the clock. So in Maine in particular, we have to fight back, but in every state in the country, we have to fight laws that would take away the power from voters. We've been trying to pass federal legislation around this. I don't think the Republicans are going to let us do that while they're in control, but you can fight back in your home state. Elections are controlled in your state.
Thank you. And Jill, here's an interesting question is, how do furloughs impact federal employees' access to health care if they aren't getting a paycheck? Do you actually, can you address that one? Do you know it? It's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question. And I think the hard part is, you know, we've had government shutdowns before. I have not been in Congress when we've had a shutdown. I have been in the state Senate when we had these situations. The real question is how this administration is going to execute, whether it be furloughs or even worse, as we've heard, mass firings. Although we've seen, sadly, they don't even need to have a government shutdown to conduct mass firings. They've been doing this from day one. And so I think it's really incumbent on all of us to figure out the details of how this is all going to go down, whether it's going to be furloughed, whether you're going to see firings, and make sure people know how they can access healthcare. We're actually putting up a website. We're getting ready to put up a website tomorrow. If it looks like a furlough is happening, a shutdown is happening, we're going to be launching a website with those kinds of details, the best to our knowledge. And we have told our staff that they are all essential. So they will be working as well on answering the phones to be able to try to guide people through the process of figuring out how to make sure that they have access to their healthcare, get questions answered if they're having trouble reaching a federal agency. Maybe Chellie might know better how people can go about making sure they have access to healthcare. But a lot of it also depends on how OMB executes whatever actions they do, a decision to furlough versus, as we've seen, sadly, them threatening to fire people.
Right. And I mean, I think it really is important. We have about 30,000 people, federal employees in New Mexico, and then we also have military personnel. You know, we have the labs, so we have a lot of public land. And if you are a federal employee, you should receive your health benefits for up to a year.
Yep.
And if you are furloughed under law, because that's our problem, not right. It's Congress's duty to pass, and the president's duty to pass. And the failure to pass a budget is the failure of the Republicans to govern. Right? If they can't fund the government, it's because they have failed to govern. So because this has happened in the past, there's actually a law that says that they will get paid for the days they were furloughed, which tells you how inefficient this is, how wasteful it is, because they're not able to work, but we will pay them, which is the right thing to do. So you will get paid, but you won't get paid right away. So people will not have a paycheck. They're going to have to go and borrow money to be able to pay their rent and pay their bills. Federal employees have bills. And if they don't get a paycheck, they're going to have to go and borrow that money until their paycheck comes. But thankfully, thanks to the work of prior congressmen, and maybe Congress says, and maybe that was, you might have worked on that, Chellie, they will continue to receive their health care. And that's what brings us back to, that's what we're fighting for, is so that everybody can be able to have health care, right? Not just federal employees, but everybody deserves health care. Do you want to add anything to that, Chellie?
You're right. You said it all very well. Everyone will continue to get their health care, but paychecks don't go through. People, I've been through shutdowns before. The longest one I've been through was during the last Trump administration. And it's very hard for federal employees. These are loyal people who do an incredible job for us in all segments of government, but they don't get their paycheck. And it is a long wait. So for many of them, as you said, they have to borrow money to pay their mortgage or to make sure they have essential funds available for everything from the cost of food to the cost of their medication. So that's why we would like to see the Republicans come to the table, negotiate with us. They control the House, the Senate, and the White House. This is their shutdown, and they need to negotiate to make sure the government continues.
And we were pointing out that and the annual funding bills, for those listening, Chellie Pingree sits on the Appropriations Committee. She knows what it's like. Every year you work on a bipartisan basis to fund the government. And when the Democrats are in the majority, they get more of what they want, but they still work with Republicans. When Republicans are a majority, how many bipartisan budgets have you actually worked on over the years, Chellie?
Well, I've been here for quite a while, and we spend a long time working these things out. We work them out between the House and the Senate, and there is so much give and take to make sure that, you know, we can find something that we can all pass. And that's what the Republicans are not doing. They're not doing any of that give and take. Those of us who serve on the Appropriations Committee have spent numerous 10 to 12-hour days, well into the middle of the night, trying to negotiate on these bills. So it's not as if we haven't been showing up to work on the 12 appropriations subcommittees and getting these bills done. We have been there every day to do that. We could have had a lot more compromising. We could have dealt with these things that we all know are coming, like the extension of the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act, or preventing these tax cuts to Medicaid. So we've been there doing our work. I've seen many Congresses work this out. They're just not doing it.
It must have been so hard to then listen to Trump say, let's do it without them, don't include them, and then actually call what we were asking for in terms of helping Americans' health care, irresponsible, irrelevant, and then using those vulgar words about, F ourselves. And this gets to, I think, the next question from Kathleen. I like the fact she starts with, hi, ladies. Hi, ladies. What is going on in this country is so sad, and it's something new every day. Will there be any balance to things, especially for us women? We're being told what to do with our bodies.
I think that's, first of all, I would say us ladies need to stick together. We need to keep doing this, supporting each other and lifting each other up. Because one of the things I definitely felt when I was back home is there's a lot of fatigue. It's hard to wake up. I had a lot of people tell me I've stopped watching the news. I've stopped looking at my phone or my social media feed because it's too difficult for me to see just attack after attack, and very much so on women, and especially women of color. It's difficult to see what is a very personal, an aggressive actions on us. So we have to be there for each other. We have to give each other grace. We have to give ourselves some grace as well and support each other up, because, we will get that balance when we take back the House. But we can't wait for even 2026 to come. Right now, we have to be the ones supporting and lifting each other up, amplifying each other's stories, pushing back against these attacks, making sure we show up to work even when Republicans don't. Chellie, I can't even imagine. You're putting in all the hours, the blood, sweat, and tears into those bipartisan appropriation bills, and then to watch as your colleagues allow pocket rescissions, allow the president to violate the Empowerment Act. All of these things, to me, are offensive to what is hard bipartisan work. A lot of hours at the table, and we have to let them know that we will not accept this. And we need to find those Republicans, just a handful of them literally, who will join us to say that the work that they did was important and that this president cannot continue to get away with the actions that he's getting away with. And I think we've just got to stick together. That's my long-winded way of saying us women, us sisters have to stick together.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Representative Jill Takuda from Hawaii and Representative Chellie Pingree from Maine.